Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in because if you're a focused learner, you already know that your time is your single most valuable asset. So think back to your childhood for a second. You spent 12 years, maybe 16, maybe even more, inside a highly structured system designed to prepare you for the quote-unquote real world. You were tested, you were graded, you were ranked. But the source material we're analyzing today brilliantly argues that this massive curriculum had a very distinct purpose, and it actually wasn't entirely your own. We're going to break down what it calls the hidden architecture of financial ignorance, exploring 10 brutal money truths derived from the strategic, unblinking mind of Niccolò Machiavelli.
It's a paradox we've literally all experienced, isn't it? I mean, you sat there and learned the quadratic formula, you memorized the periodic table, and you learned all the geopolitical causes of World War I. But somehow, you never learn how interest compounds against you or how the tax code is specifically structured to reward ownership over employment. Why is that? Well, the source suggests this absolutely isn't an accident. It's not because your teachers were malicious or because the information was somehow hidden away in a vault. It's because the system itself simply has no structural incentive to produce people who understand why employees are always the last ones to get paid.
And that brings us to a quote channeling Machiavelli's cold, calculating precision. He observed that every system of power controls its own reproduction. It teaches the next generation exactly what the current generation needs them to know. So, the total absence of financial education, it's not some shadowy conspiracy in a smoke-filled room. It's just a predictable, structural outcome. Look, school is incredibly effective at teaching punctuality, strict compliance, and asking permission to use the restroom. Those traits make a highly reliable employee, for sure, but they make an entirely unreliable entrepreneur. The system teaches you how to be valuable to it, not how to own a piece of it.
Ultimately, this dismantles the core promise we were all sold growing up, the myth of linear causality. You know the one: study hard, get good grades, get a good job, and you'll live a good life. It's such a clean, reassuring chain of logic. But as a model for how wealth actually works in reality, the source argues it is structurally false. Wealth doesn't just neatly accumulate step by step on a staircase. It compounds, it jumps, it concentrates. It relies on hidden mechanisms that have absolutely nothing to do with the obedient little inputs that the linear model rewards.
Okay, let's move into Section 1. The illusion of employment and redefining work and value.
Brutal truth number 1 is a total paradigm shifter. Listen to this. Your salary is not an objective reward for your absolute value to the world. Far from it. It is simply the minimum amount your employer calculates they need to pay to keep you from leaving and building something of your own. Structurally speaking, every business that employs people is engaged in a continuous arbitrage. They capture the value of your labor at a price lower than what your labor actually produces in the market, and they keep the margin as the reward for building the system. That's not theft, right? That's literally just the business model. You aren't paid what you're worth, you are paid exactly what you will accept to not go out and build your own competing structure.
Which perfectly sets up truth number 2, the massive difference between active labor and a passive asset. School presents hard work as the ultimate wealth-building strategy, but working a job has a hard, physical ceiling. Why? Because you are selling your time, and there are only 24 hours in a day, no matter how hard you hustle. An asset, on the other hand, is architecture. Think of a rental property, an equity stake, or intellectual property. These are structures that operate completely independent of your active presence. If your income stops the second you get sick or you need to sleep, you don't really have a financial life. As the source notes, you just have a very elaborate dependency.
Truth number 7 jumps into how you are actually evaluated out there. Notice the contrast here. The market pays for perceived value, not real value. We all want to believe that the absolute best product wins, or the most talented person naturally rises to the top. But markets operate in environments of high uncertainty and incomplete information. Because buyers can't instantly see your real value, they rely heavily on proxy signals, positioning, reputation, aesthetic quality, social proof. The harsh reality: substance without positioning is essentially just a diamond left in the dirt. It's totally invisible. Hidden talent and zero talent produce the exact same income. You absolutely have to learn how to signal your value.
All right, transitioning to Section 2, the mechanics of wealth and how the system actually operates.
Truth number 3 hides in a seemingly harmless, tiny number, 3%. That's a standard, historical rate of inflation. Now, school taught you to save your pennies, to build a safe little cushion in a bank account. But at 3% annual inflation, a savings account earning 1% is silently, methodically destroying your wealth. Inflation is effectively a stealth tax on people who hold currency instead of real assets. If you hold real estate, equities, or productive businesses, those assets just reprice upward to match. The system doesn't target responsible savers on purpose, it just mechanically rewards asset holders.
Compare that steady little bleed to truth number 8, greater than 20%. This right here is the bank's absolute favorite magic trick: compound interest working against you. Everyone tells you compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world for the patient investor. What's rarely mentioned is that it works with identical, crushing exponential force in reverse. Every unpaid balance on a credit card compounds exponentially. The financial services industry is fundamentally structured to collect compound interest from the poor and middle class, and then pay reduced compound returns to the wealthy. It's a massive mechanical wealth transfer mechanism.
Truth number 9 completely challenges the most common financial advice of all time. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Well, diversification, watering the whole garden evenly, is really a risk management tool for people who have absolutely no edge or superior information. You can't meaningfully outperform the market when you essentially are the market. But concentration, using a magnifying glass to start a fire, that's what builds catastrophic wealth. The people who build extraordinary fortunes don't diversify across everything. They concentrate their capital aggressively into specific areas where they possess genuine understanding and a structural advantage.
Moving on to Section 3, Unfair Rules of the Game, looking at asymmetry in action.
Truth number 4 reveals a truly brutal asymmetry. The tax code is not some neutral, unbiased revenue collection system. It is quite literally an incentive program written by asset owners for asset owners. For an employee, the government extracts taxes immediately. They take the very first bite, and you only get to spend what's left over. For a business owner, the mechanics are completely reversed. You earn revenue, you spend it on legitimate business expenses, technology, travel, vehicles, whatever the business needs, and only the remaining profit is taxed on a dramatically smaller base. It's the exact same system, but it yields radically, wildly different outcomes.
Truth number 5 is all about debt. We are culturally conditioned to fear all debt as the ultimate enemy of financial security. And to be fair, consumer debt, borrowing to buy depreciating assets like TVs and cars, is genuinely destructive. But leverage is an entirely different beast. Leverage is borrowing at 5% to acquire an asset that consistently produces 8%. You aren't really in debt. You've engineered a spread using other people's capital. Capturing that 3% spread is where the magic happens. Ignorance of debt keeps millions trapped in poverty, while understanding it as a tool builds great fortunes. The question isn't whether debt is bad, but whose tool it actually is. Which brings us to truth number 6. Stop collecting business cards. Seriously, the standard networking advice to attend mixers and boost your sheer volume of contacts optimizes for entirely the wrong metric. A real network relies on gravity, not activity. Machiavelli noted centuries ago that the most powerful princes didn't just have the most allies, they had allies who possessed a genuine structural self-interest in seeing them succeed. You want to be the magnetic center. You want to be the person your allies pull into the room before the job is even posted. Ask yourself, for whom have I created enough value that they think of my success automatically?
And now we reach Section 4, breaking your limiting beliefs, the final obstacle.
Truth number 10 states that the absolute most expensive thing you will ever own is your limiting belief about money. You can completely understand all the previous mechanical truths we just discussed, but if you hold on to inherited, unexamined beliefs, literally nothing changes. Just look at these 3 common traps. Believing you aren't innately smart enough converts a simple positioning problem into a permanent identity problem. Believing you absolutely need massive capital to start prevents you from ever seeking asset-light, high-leverage models. And believing wealth is just for other people removes you from the game before the whistle even blows. It takes everything from your tomorrow.
This really brings us to the core underlying philosophy of the whole explainer today. Machiavelli didn't believe in just shrugging and surrendering to fortune or bad luck. He believed deeply in the concept of virtue, the active, dynamic capacity of human beings to shape their own circumstances through sharp intelligence and deliberate action. A limiting belief is basically surrendering your power before the battle even starts. If your self-worth is built on unexamined beliefs installed by a system fundamentally meant to make you a compliant employee, well, your net worth will always be artificially capped. The system didn't really lie to you, it just carefully ensured you never asked the right questions. School gave you a diploma certifying your competency to function as a highly useful employee within someone else's market. But now you see the hidden architecture. You understand the levers of leverage, of assets, of taxes, and of compound interest. You are no longer navigating the game blindly. So the ultimate provocative question this source material leaves us with is this. Now that you see it all, what will you do to be free? You have to decide whether you'll continue to operate within their system or build above it. Thanks for learning with us today.